You're listening to Dirty Feet, a podcast from No More Radio.
Vous écoutez le podcast Dirty Feet sur les ondes de No More Radio.
Hosted by,
animé par
Allison Burns,
JD Papillon,
et Stéphanie Morin-Robert.
Stay tuned.
We're gonna move you. Hey everyone, welcome to a new episode of Dirty Feet. So today with me, this is JD Papillon by the way, and with me is Tim Rodrigues.
Hello.
How are you doing, Tim?
I'm well, yourself, JD?
Good, I'm good, thank you. And for this week, we're doing something a bit different from our usual. We're actually welcoming someone who is part of the Zoo Fest, which is itself part of the Just for Laughs Festival, which is going now in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And who we're welcoming today is a recurring guest. Actually, we've had her on the show before as part of our burlesque roundtable. That was back in our olden days. And for people who know as her stage act name, it's Miss Sugarpuss. A lot of people know her also as Holly Gauthier-Frankel, especially parents, I guess. So she's coming to talk to us about her new show, which is a collaboration with DeAnne Smith, who is very well known in the Montreal comedy scene. The show is called Stand Up, Strip Down, Ha-Has and Tatas for Everyone, which is a fantastic name, by the way. The show will be from July 21st to the 23rd at Mainline Theatre, and it will be at 11:45 p.m. Tickets are $20, and they can be bought on Just for Laughs website, which is hahaha.com. So with this out of the way now, hi, Holly. How are you doing today?
Hi, I'm very, very well. Thank you for having me on the show again. It's nice to be
coming.
Here.
So now, like for us, it's a bit different. As I mentioned, we're usually talking about dance, choreography, really serious stuff. And now we're going to be talking about burlesque, which is serious in its own way, but also has this very joie de vivre aspect to it. And comedy, which can be very dark and tormented, or can be very... Ha-has.
Yes.
So, first of all, tell us a bit about yourself. A lot of people know you, but some of our listeners might not.
Sure. Yeah, I'm a Montreal-based artist. I call myself a multidisciplinary artist now because I dabble in a whole bunch of things. I've been a performer since I was a kid, and I'm a singer and I'm an actress, and I've danced my whole life. I would never say that I am a professional dancer. I never did choruses or anything like that, but I've studied, I take classes, I've done choreographic collaborations with choreographers from Montreal and different kinds of disciplinary artists like contortionists, and I dip my toes into all kinds of realms. And I've been doing burlesque for almost 10 years now. I came up through the Fringe Festival circuit here in Montreal. I did some shows that I wrote and put together. And so, yeah, I mean, I've always considered myself a dancer of sorts. But I have a lot of respect and reverence for the art and the profession of it and the people that are trying to make a living doing it. But I wanted to be able to participate in a way where I could kind of squish together all the things that I was already doing, namely acting and comedy and things that inspired me, and things that I wasn't seeing in a dance context necessarily, or even in a theater context or an acting context. So burlesque really suited my brain, and it also suited my body, because I was, as a performer, you constantly put yourself out there to be examined and rejected, basically. And my major kind of trajectory all through my 20s was that everything I was doing was good, but my body was wrong. It was the wrong shape, it was the wrong size. And then it was just the beginning of this burlesque resurgence, at least in Canada. It was starting to become really sort of noticed in 2004, 2005. And that's when I decided to write a show. And I didn't think it was going to explode the way it has. It's become this completely mainstream kind of art form now. And in the States, it's already been its own thing for over 50 years. It kind of dipped away, but it's been going. It's been going strong. Anyway, that's kind of me in a nutshell. And over the past 10 years, I've developed as a burlesque artist, and I've kind of dipped into different realms, even beyond burlesque, and I'm constantly trying to evolve even the burlesque dancing, which can be very light and can be very fluffy, but it is very studied, and there's lots of rehearsal, and there's lots of costume planning, and the way I like to do it anyway. I don't like to just put on a corset and say I'm pretty or if I do, then I have to make sure that I do something hilarious at the end, like pratfall or cover myself in honey or something.
Well, that speaks a lot to the actual craft behind it, because it is a very crafted performance type.
Yeah. It's a fine line between what looks like improvisation and a crafted, planned out story, because it's satire. It's supposed to be satirical. It's supposed to be making people think, even though they're titillated. That's what I think. I mean, a lot of people would say that the very classic form of it is simply about entertaining and posture and kind of tableau vivant almost. And there are some performers who do that extraordinarily well. I just never really wanted to stay still for that long. So, yeah.
You've mentioned the multidisciplinarity of your background and also of how you approach creation. I feel that one show that sort of that was that in a nutshell very much so was your one-woman show Miss Sugarpuss Must Die, which was presented at the Fringe Festival and then at the Centaur.
Yep.
And for people who might not have seen it, there was it was very much one woman addressing the audience for much of it, and bringing burlesque aspects.
Yeah.
But there was also a lot of dark comedy aspects to it.
Yeah.
And for people who've seen Miss Sugarpuss, there's something that's usually a bit more vibrant in the comedy and less dark. Like there's always this undercurrent that might be there, but like Miss Sugarpuss Must Die, compared to what I've seen from you before, was a lot more, went to places that we might not have expected as audience members.
Yeah.
Is this something that for this new project you'll be going towards again, or is this collaboration with DeAnne Smith taking you to into a different direction?
I think the collaborations with DeAnne have always allowed me to fiddle in the comedy realm. I mean, we've been doing this show off and on for, oh my God, I think it's been over the last 5 years that we've been putting it on at Theatre St. Catherine and then at Mainline a few times. This is just the second time it's in the Just for Laughs lineup, but I've been participating in this show for a while, and I like to stay lighthearted in this context because it is simply comedians and burlesque dancers. So I get to pull out the sillier stuff, the really goofy stuff, the really messy stuff that normally you can't do in a 60-minute dramatic burlesque exploration of my darkness, whatever, blah, blah. But yeah, I mean, I definitely like to poke fun at people's expectations, and the character Miss Sugarpuss has a sort of darkness around her that kind of hovers near her, with this excessive drinking and this joie de vivre that's sort of hiding very badly this pain and desperation, this loneliness, this crazy cat lady trope that a lot of women worry about, or that's a typical thing that you think women will worry about. I like to sort of take all that stuff and whatever happens to come out, depending on the audience response, I can go there or not. But no, normally I like to put on the most idiotic of my costumes and roll around on the floor. I like to do, particularly for stand-up strip down, there's a character that Miss Sugarpuss plays, which is strange because it's all me, but his name is Hugo Gauthier, and he's a janitor, and he just completely bends this gender line by being a furry, seemingly male person underneath, except it's me with boobs, and he does all sorts of lewd things with his broom and bananas and his pants, and it's just buffoonery. It's just complete, I'm an idiot and I'm naked and you like it, so what does that say about you guys?
Right.
I really like to go there as well. And yeah, DeAnne, this particular installment of Stand Up Strip Down is really interesting because since it's part of Just for Laughs, we're getting hugely well-known comedians to come and participate, but we never know until the last minute to sort of, who's going to be on the show. We sort of have an idea of people who've said, yeah, I want to do it because they've heard that it's fun, it's easy, it's
exactly.
not, there isn't any pressure, It's a bunch of really intelligent women. So far, it's all women. There are no burlesque performers yet. Hopefully, there will be some next year. But yeah, it's a bunch of hot, smart ladies doing silly, silly stuff to contrast hilarious and hugely talented comics who are just wanting to do a fun booby show. Like they enjoy it because we're all romping around backstage fully nude, and and then they get to do their set, which is generally wonderful, and it's a treat because people last year we had Jimmy Carr and we had Will Anderson and Celia Paccola and Andy Kindler. Like these people were just like, yeah, we heard this is a cool show and we want to do it. So we're kind of hoping that we have the same sort of lineup this year, which is just amazing. I'm still kind of baffled that it happens this way and that we're doing Just for Laughs and that we get to hang out with these people. So but yeah, I don't want to go too dark, especially because these shows are on a Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday at midnight. So who wants dark when you're out on a Tuesday? Nobody, I hope.
With speaking just a bit about the format, I was saying earlier before the recording is that this is something that reminds me of a format of burlesque that my grandparents would have seen, where you have the comic as the host. And then there's the acts, and the acts can be a comedian or it can be a burlesque performance. And this is something that we don't see very often in the quote-unquote burlesque venues that our city has, because there are a lot of burlesque troupes that perform and just do the performances where they have their set acts and each act will come on and just perform. There might be a host, but this is really a shared bill between yourselves and the comedian, something that harkens back to burlesque as we know it.
Yeah, real vaudeville.
Right, exactly.
That's sort of what we, without really trying. I mean, DeAnne and I met both at the beginnings of our careers, shall we say. I think it was around 2007, 2008, and I had taken a break after Fringe shows, and I was just trying to figure out my footing as a solo burlesque artist, and we were both on the bill at this now defunct bar, Candy Bar, it used to be up there, and it wasn't a burlesque venue at all, but that's sort of what the beauty of Montreal was back then. Every venue could be a burlesque venue because no one really knew what it was yet. But we were put on this, it was a breast cancer fundraiser, and it was all, lovely old ladies and, and older people, and we realized as we were standing near the kitchen that we were both going to be doing kind of unconventional things for this kind of context, and so we made a pact together to sort of just do our material to the best of our ability. It was like a 3-foot by 2.5-foot square in front of some chairs, and I basically said, I'm going to shake my tits in that old lady's face. And she said, well, I have a joke, and the punchline is Heil Klittler. So we were like, okay, so we'll do it. Best friends now. And then we continued, and comedy and burlesque have always lived side by side. That's exactly the roots. I mean, this show is not a vaudeville show necessarily, only because there isn't some fire eater or fart singer, but maybe next year, who knows. Like, there are no jugglers, not yet, but it's the real true spirit of like, pack up your bags, let's go, we have to do this show. And
some Gypsy Rose type stuff.
A little bit. But that's my aesthetic and my influence completely. I always want to do old vaudeville style stuff. I'm not, when it's too slick, it's too polished, it loses the soul of it for me. And so I want it gritty, and I want it scary and dirty, and who knows what'll happen, and maybe someone will fall down, or maybe I'll have to harass the guy in the front row who's not smiling, or it has to be real and comedy, stand-up comedy, as practiced and studied in art form as it is so real. It's horrifying to me. I would never be able to do it. I find it so courageous to just stand there and talk. I mean, that's why I do burlesque, because I don't have to stay still. I don't want people to have to see me for too long. I'm like a whirlwind, you know? But I do love this format, because it's the bare bones of what entertainment always was and kind of should be for me.
Not to get too much into like gender studies, academia or anything, but talking about the history of vaudeville, there was the traditional aspect and relationship between the male host, the male comedian, and the female burlesque dancer, so dressed male host and, getting naked female performer.
Sure.
And there's a really interesting gender dynamic there that is being deconstructed through this performance with, DeAnne Smith, who is a woman who does dress up in more typical male clothing, but at the same time is a very female performer, because like her comedy is very female in a way.
Sure.
So there's this interesting deconstruction there. Is this something that you'll push further, this interaction between and is this playing with the codified genre?
Well, it wasn't. I mean, DeAnne is who she is. She's a queer performer, and she has a following, and I don't think she has an agenda necessarily, and nor do I. But I mean, again, when I started doing burlesque, I didn't ever shy away from pushing that boundary. I mean, Miss Sugarpuss has always been in nebulous sexual scenarios where, gender wasn't an issue. But this just sort of happens organically, if I can say that. The following that DeAnne has and the following that I have, we've always attracted very open people, and nobody's, we're not standard, we're not typical in any way. I don't know. I mean, for me, the Hugo character is the beginning of a gender twisting kind of thing, but I don't necessarily need to push it any more than it already is. I just but I do love that DeAnne is the one kind of being the ringleader for this show. But it doesn't. We've never really discussed it. It's never really been a thing, a point, a goal. It's just she is who she is, and I am who I am, and we coexist very well. And all the people, straight or gay or male or female or whoever or whatever in between, they've always been just, it morphs very well into a show easily.
Yeah. I mean, you were saying before that for you, it's there's a lot of satire in it. Well, not just for you, but burlesque as an art form is also supposed to be very satirical, almost like the court jesters of today. And with especially in a city like Montreal, where the audiences are always so varied in queer, straight, transgendered, high art kids, low art kids. It's like it is actually really happening organically. Like you in order to be you guys are very self-aware to the point where it's like you don't know that you're self-aware. It's just happening. Like, so good things keep happening. So it's interesting to see this show, and it just makes so much sense with DeAnne's act and the work that you create as Miss Sugarpuss. They very much do go hand in hand based on the characters and the content. So it's very apropos, if I may.
Yes, well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're also going to be joined by two other burlesque performers.
Yes. We're going to be joined by El Diablo, who's a good colleague of mine, and we've collaborated many, many times in the past. She's one of my oldest friends in real life, and we've done a lot of musical theater stuff together and danced together for years and years. And Ruby Rhapsody, who's a new performer in Montreal, whom I haven't seen perform yet, so I'm really excited. I've just heard really good things about her, I'm looking forward to watching their acts as much as performing my own. It's going to be really fun.
And when it comes to the stand-up comedians that will be part of the showcase, do you guys know who it will be yet?
Still don't know yet.
Do you just get people like after seeing their shows during the festival?
Well, no. I mean, Just for Laughs is a little more on top of it, but we can't say anybody's names until people have confirmed, and nobody really knows what their set schedule is going to be until they arrive in town, and sometimes things get shifted, so we're never sure who's doing a gala or what. I mean, I know DeAnne is also participating in one of the gala nights, I think in the Seth Rogen night, so, you know, maybe she can convince him to come on by. I don't know. I mean, I cannot guarantee who's going to be there, but
who's this Seth Rogen character?
Some Canadian dude.
Oh, cool.
Some funny guy. I don't know.
Homegrown talent. We love this.
Yeah. I mean, I've struck up a friendship on Twitter with Andy Kindler, and I've been harassing him nonstop all year long to come back and do the show. So hopefully he will, if I haven't frightened him too much, but we don't know yet. And DeAnne really takes care of all that because she knows all those comics. I have a hard time because I just sort of stand there backstage starstruck and kind of trying to keep my myself together because
it really, the more we speak about the show, the more it really harkens back to what, like, the vaudeville era, you know, because we got a show, kids, let's go. You know, that sort of idea of like flying by the seat of your pants and waiting for it's like the magic will come if you just put it out there.
For sure.
You know?
If you just let yourself be, that's part of it. For all the prep and the costumes and the glitter and the this and that, what actually makes the act for a comedian or for a burlesque dancer, in my opinion, is the people who are sitting in front of you and the other people who are on the bill. Like, you can't ignore the energy that's existing in the room at that point. And for me, the very best burlesque acts I've ever seen have been this perfect combination of super skilled dancing and beautiful costuming and hilariously apropos storyline and whatever, mixed with the willingness to throw it all out the window if one person is responding and giving you something that you absolutely have to work with, you know. And that's a big thing, like the vibe of the room and learning how to be a human being underneath all that makeup and stuff that you've got on, to be able to bring your full essence and be like, hi, I'm seeing you and I'm looking at you and you're laughing, so let me come over here. And like, it's like a conversation when it's working really, really well. Same for stand-up. So yeah, I'm expecting magic. I hope it happens.
I just want to say that was a beautiful Field of Dreams sentiment right there. Like, build it and they will come.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah, me and the baseball.
Baseball is fantastic. I miss the Expos, but this is another topic altogether. You were talking about audience interaction and, you know, pushing boundaries.
Sure.
How far do you feel that it's okay to push boundaries with audience members in regards to questions of ethics and respect of your audience? Do you feel that there is a limit, or do you feel that because people will have their own personal limits, you can't really gauge that?
Yeah, I mean, I always want to respect my audience, and I know my rule for, you know, never blame the audience for your crappy performance. If you don't feel like it went well, it's not their fault, it's your fault. Or it's just what it was, you know. But we did, I mean, it was interesting. Last year there was a vibe at one point during one of the shows where someone was being an extremely obstinate audience member, and it was very aggressive in its in his quietness and his demeanor, and you know, you come out there all full of your vibe, and it's basically a back and forth of energy exchange, you know, so you want the people to be exchanging energy with you, and if they're not, that's fine, you know, you don't have to force them. And I'm not that kind of shocking, aggressive performer necessarily. That's not my goal. And there are a lot of people who do more performance art-based burlesque, or really shocking, really overtly sexually explicit, you know. I mean, and that's fine, but that's not what I'm there to do. I'm mostly there to just have a little conversation, make people laugh, enjoy myself, and leave. But yeah, there was an incident with one guy who was sitting right in the front, not responding, not smiling, arms folded, very angry looking, to the point where, you know, I started to try to play around with him, and I ended up kind of breaking my own rule of not, I let it get to me. I let it sort of get to me because I found it so strange that this one person, and he was affecting the people around him, and it was just like, so I spat some olives at him. I wasn't proud of myself afterwards. I sort of thought, well, you didn't really have to do that. But, everybody could see that he was very strange, and I did this thing, and I spit olives anyway, so I figured I would just spit them all in his general direction. And he didn't respond. He didn't even, and when he didn't respond, then I felt bad. I was like, oh, maybe there's something wrong, and I've without even saying a word, I've shown him to the rest of the room, and I've kind of made it clear. And I thought about it a lot over the last year, actually, because I was conscious of the space that DeAnne and I set up, which was a kind of communal realm, where you want everybody to participate. And it was this interesting moment where my wants and my ego kind of came into play. And it has to, because it's a narcissistic art form already. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, and nothing happened. The guy didn't dissolve into tears, or like we moved on, but everybody was sort of aware, and everybody had noticed him already. I wondered if I ever really needed to make it clear that he was not participating. And I think, no, I don't have to ever do that, because he's just being, and why can't I just let him be? Yeah. I mean, it was a little bizarre, like he made a cold, weird vibe happen, but it's not really my problem. So I hope he comes back, actually, so I can figure out how I'm going to maneuver around him again.
I mean, that's an interesting scenario that really only comics and burlesque performers find themselves in, because a lot of times when you're doing something else, you only really find yourself behind the fourth wall, but there really isn't a fourth wall in comedy or burlesque. Like, everything is there, so it's an interesting situation to find yourself in. And it sounds like you handled it to the best of your abilities. Because sometimes comics will say it when they come off stage, like, that guy in the front row, man, that he's a piece of work, and they really take away from them because everything is so mapped out that they don't want to get pulled out of it. It is a very intense performance for you guys on stage, because you're so close, and you can feel the negativity sometimes from one person in a room full of 80, 100, 3,000 people,
Sure.
Because even comics or performers in a larger place, if they can see somebody in the front row and they're not in it, they're going to call them out.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I think some people did, and I just realized that I could have let the other people kind of take care of it, and I didn't really need to go there. But the thing about mainline is that it's so small and so intimate that you can feel physically where the energy is dipping and where it's up, So it was also a product of that. Like, I couldn't get away from him. He was right there. And then it made me kind of mad. I sort of thought, oh, well, is this a gender thing? Is this like some man imposing his manliness in my face, and I'm a woman, and I'm empowered, but he's not buying it, and why isn't he buying it? And like, it just became this whole politicized, heated thing in my brain, which, my performance was still good, but I never want to come at it from this aggressive, hyper-politicized place. Like, if people take political things out of my acts that I probably did think about and am infusing it with, okay, but I don't need to actively do that. If I want to be political, I'll go march somewhere, or I'll, shoot my mouth off, and I'll do it properly, but I don't want to mar the dance and the physical act, because it can just be misinterpreted quickly and easily. That's not what I'm setting out to do ever. And I don't want my students, like, if there are students of mine in the audience, like, I thought a lot about my students who potentially could have been there watching, and I don't know if they were, but it wouldn't have been my proudest moment for people who are just starting to explore burlesque and performance. So no, it was interesting though. I wonder if he'll be back.
Maybe the guy developed a fetish of getting olives spat at him.
Maybe.
So he's just going to be like, oh man, I can't wait for this show.
I hope she brings those olives. There's no olives this year, buddy. Just Hugo and his banana.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this show, just to remind everyone, the name of the show is Stand Up, Strip Down, Ha-Has and Tatas for Everyone.
Yeah.
I just love reading that.
That's a good tagline. That's all DeAnne. I cannot take
It's all DeAnne.
It's all
Good
DeAnne.
job, DeAnne.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, with DeAnne Smith and Miss Sugarpuss, Holly Gauthier-Frankel, who is just with us right now. It is part of ZooFest, which is part itself of the Just Flash Festival.
It's off JFL, I think. It's ZooFest, and I don't know how they've done it this year, but yeah,
they've done it very interestingly this year. It is there is still ZooFest,
and
then more of the English programming for ZooFest has been taken under the off JFL so that everything runs smoother.
Okay. Well, yes, we're part of a multitude of festivals, all being run by Just for Laughs. It's all very prestigious. Yeah, it's good.
And this will be at Mainline Theatre. We don't have the address.
5337 Saint Laurent Boulevard.
There you go. It's the one with the big flaming door for anyone who doesn't know about it.
From July 21st to 23rd.
Yep.
11:45 p.m. Tickets are $20. Available at hahaha.com. Yeah.
And so, Ms. Sugarpuss, Holly Gauthier-Frankel, thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Dirty Feet is recorded every week at the Montreal Improv Theatre. Check them out at montrealimprov.com.
Dirty Feet est produit et animé par,
produced and hosted by Allison Burns,
JD Papillon,
et Stéphanie Morin-Robert.
You can find out more about our show at nomoreradio.com, follow us on Twitter at Dirty Feet, and find us on Facebook at Dirty Feet Podcast.
Vous pouvez écouter tous nos épisodes sur notre site web ou vous pouvez vous abonner également sur iTunes à notre podcast.
Listen to past episodes on website or subscribe to the podcast on iTunes.
While you're there, be sure to give us a rating and or leave a comment to help us spread the word.
Tune in next week for a whole new show.